conduct today? Are you taking personal responsibility? Good morning.
In the trailer on the highway where our love first did grow. Do you remember in the winter how the cold winds did blow? But it was warm there by the heater, and it was warm in our hearts. In the trailer on the highway where our love first did spark.
This girl raises my vibrations, man.
In the trailer on the highway where our hearts first entwined. How the windows they would rattle when the big trucks rolled by. And the raccoons they would chatter by the trash cans at night. But your love kept me safe as your arms held me tight.
Hey, Stevie the Guide here in Kerrville, Texas. Good morning. Hey, there you are. Good morning. It is 5 a.m. once again on a Friday, and I hope you're having a good morning. If you're awake at this hour, I tend to roll out about 3 or 3:30. So I'm always awake at this hour. I may go back and take a little nap sometimes, after I do this and before I go to work, but for some reason, my eyes open about 3, and that's what usually happens. Unless I've been working out hard, which I've been taking personal responsibility for my physical health. Because I noticed, surprise, surprise, that if I don't take personal responsibility for this body, I'm not going to get the good health that I always got mostly for free. As you hit 60, I figure when you hit 60, which is what I am, I'll be 61 this month. My birthday's this month, I'll be 61. And I figured, the way I got it figured, when you hit 60 years old, everything after that is gravy, man. And if you're going to keep the body together, it wants to start sort of falling apart. You notice the muscles start getting a little softer, a little quicker. And so I'm doing what I can to keep this body together and preserve it and keep the vibration high because good nutrition and physical exercise become more and more critically important. And taking personal responsibility for my health is ever increasing because you know what? These doctors ain't got all the answers, all right? They got some of the answers, and thank God for doctors and pharmaceuticals to some degree. Thank God. They got some good tricks up their sleeve, but they ain't got it all. And the fact is that the massive powers that be are trying their very best to get control of all healing practices and all medicinal things on this planet and to restrict you as best they can from getting your hands on things that'll actually cure you because their business model wants to manage your illness, all right? And they're delighted. Yeah, I'm not saying that pharmaceutical companies started this coronavirus thing. I'm not saying that. I don't know where it came from. But the fact of the matter is that they are now in a position to receive billions of dollars for this illness. And, I just kind of got to wonder, this damn thing came out of nowhere, out of some lab in China, it sounds like. It sounds like from the reports I've read that a guy that runs a biology department at Harvard University has been arrested for being in cahoots with a laboratory in Wuhan, China. All right. Now what's up with that? He's been receiving money from the Chinese. Why? Anyway, I'm not here to talk about conspiracy theories today. What I am here to talk about is taking one's responsibility for one's own self. You know, your doctor ain't going to make you healthy. He may solve a few problems, but he ain't going to make you healthy. And if you give your responsibility to him, his business model says he'd like to manage all your diseases until you're dead. He doesn't want you to die. He just wants you to, you know, for his business model to make the highest and best money, it's good for you to be sick and come to him, you know, regularly. So if you don't take responsibility for your own personal health and your nutrition and your exercise and your breathing, this deep breathing thing is very important. And so anyway, your doctor ain't going to make you healthy. Your teacher is not going to make you learn, okay? That teacher, he's got some tricks up his sleeve, and he can help motivate. A good teacher is valuable. And I've gotten good teachers in university and church and in life in general. Good teachers are great, but they are not going to make you learn, you know. It is your responsibility to study and to keep your mind sharp and to do things that naturally raise your vibration, raise your intuition, raise the bar. So you've got to do something every day. And this is what I do, folks. This is what I do right here. This is my mental gym. And did I want to come to this thing today? I did not. Today, I was at low motivation. When I woke up about 3:30, I was like, screw this. I don't want to go do it. And this is a notion that comes to me regularly. But here I am. I pulled together a little something, and I'm trying to keep my mind sharp, trying to raise my vibration in hopes that the general vibration of the planet will go up too. And if there's one single person out there that gets one iota of higher vibration out of whatever I say, then I'm blessed, baby. I made a difference. And on top of which, I selfishly get to raise my own vibration by doing some kind of exercise that makes me go higher. And your doctor ain't going to make you healthy. Your preacher ain't going to make you spiritual, you know. You can go to church all you want to, you know. You can study the Bible. You can study the Quran. You can study the Torah. You can listen to smart people. You get a lot out of it, all right? I highly recommend you do that. But at the end of the day, your spirituality is ultimately your responsibility. And so do with that what you will. If you're not engaged in a daily meditation practice, I encourage you. It's one of the very best things one can learn that brings about a well-being and accesses that deeper well of information that we all need. And so take responsibility. I'm talking to myself here. I might as well be looking in the mirror, which is basically what I'm doing. You guys out there, if you're looking, if you're watching, you know, you're just an invisible audience out there. I see somebody chiming in over there. Looks like Donnie. Good morning, Donnie, Phil, whoever else, Lucas. Anyway, good morning. I don't always respond to the comments because it's hard for me to see and stop my train of thought that goes on. Today I got off on personal responsibility and how we don't want to take it. We don't want to take this personal responsibility. And there is a quote that I got around here somewhere from Richard Bach. And Richard Bach, the author of Bridge Across Forever, Illusions, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Richard Bach. He says, if it's never our fault, we can't take responsibility for it. And if we can't take responsibility for it, then we'll always be the victim. We'll always be its victim. If we cannot take responsibility for it, then we're always going to be the victim, all right? It's always going to be the doctor, the teacher, the preacher, the policeman, the friend, whoever else. We're trying to foist off that responsibility. And so it's never our fault. And the sad thing about all that is we never get the credit when we win. All right, you never really truly get to take full credit. if you haven't taken full responsibility. And so there's a peace and there's an autonomy about being responsible, putting on the pants of being responsible for every little thing that happens. And kind of what got me off on is two stories. One is my story and one is my dad's story. And my dad's story goes back to World War II. And in World War II, he had a friend who was a 22-year-old pilot who had never been on an active bombing mission. He was a bomber pilot. I believe it was in a B-17. And they are in England back in like 1943. And the issue is that the next morning they're going to go out on this bombing run to Germany and drop some bombs on it, right? And he's never been on one. He's nervous about it. And so he's praying, at night about it. And he's just this young kid, 22 years old. What is he doing being the pilot of a bomber? And so he walks out very early in the morning onto the tarmac and the flight deck or whatever, and he's going to go meet his crew because he's never met this crew ever before, and he's thinking, what am I doing here? I'm just a young kid. And he gets out there, he finds out that he's the oldest guy on the crew. He's 22, the co-pilot is 21, the navigator is like 21 or 20, 19, whatever it is. And the rest of the guys are teenagers, 18, 19 years old, 17 even. There's gunners and there's, navigators and people. Anyway, there's about a 6 or 8 man crew, I guess, on this plane. And so they take off, and he's like the old man, on the team, and he's flying this bomber over across the channel to Germany. And I think it was across the channel or wherever it was. They're up in the air and they're flying towards Germany, and everyone's nervous as a cat, And they get over the target where they thought the target was, and they drop their bombs, and they look down, find out they bombed some cornfield or out in somewhere, missed the target completely. All right, and so he turns the plane around, starts heading back, and all of a sudden they take ground fire. All right, and these bombs are blowing up all around them, and they get hit several times, and it starts a fire on board the aircraft, and so there's a total panic about what to do. It's like all of a sudden there's fire and smoke, and one guy got injured, and maybe more, I don't know, but it's pandemonium. All these young kids on board the plane, they freak out, and so the captain, the pilot, tells everybody, all right, it's time to bail out. The plane's going down. I think they got like one engine that's running, and there's a fire on board, and so he pulls his parachute tight. He gets out, puts it on automatic pilot, gets out of his chair, goes back to the compartment, starts telling everybody to bail out, and all these young guys, they begin to have an argument about who's going to bail out first. All right, and nobody wants to be the first one to go, and so this guy, my dad's friend, who was a pilot, he tightens up his parachute and says, okay, I'll go first, and takes responsibility for the situation. It's leadership, right? And so he says, follow me, and he jumps out of the airplane. This is a true story. And so it's foggy outside, and he drifts down, his parachute opens, and he drifts down, and he gets hung in a tree, and it's foggy and kind of rainy outside, and he can't see anything, and he doesn't want to cut loose from his parachute because he's way, might be way up in the air. He could get hurt, and so he decides to just wait until the morning when he can see where the ground is, and he hangs in that parachute up in the tree until he goes to sleep, and he falls asleep, And then when he wakes up, before he even opens his eyes, as he's hanging there in the parachute, before he even opens his eyes, he hears people talking, and he smells cigarette smoke, and he realizes that the language that he's hearing is German. And when he opens his eyes while he's hanging in the parachute, he's all sleepy and groggy, opens his eyes, and he sees 3 German soldiers looking almost directly at him. And he looks down, and his feet are hanging about this high above the ground. He's hanging in the tree, but he's only a few inches above the ground. And these German soldiers are standing there waiting for him to wake up, and they're laughing at his situation. And they cut him loose and take him to a concentration camp, where he stayed for 2 years. All right. And so when they finally were liberated and they let him out of, the concentration camp, my dad's friend heads back to his original base, his air base, and starts looking for his unit. And he runs into all his buddies who were on the plane with him. And what happened was, when they saw him take responsibility and jump out of that aircraft, they all freaked out. They were scared. And so they banded together and they fought the fire, and the co-pilot made the plane limp back to base, and they made it home and had a steak and a baked potato for dinner that very night. And none of them, had any trouble. And this guy who took responsibility and made a choice, he stayed in the concentration camp for 2 years, and his buddies, were safely back at base that night. And so taking responsibility, has its consequences, and you got to be willing to make a decision. The word decision means that you cut away from all other decisions. It's like a surgical maneuver when you make a decision. And so that's one take responsibility story that I remember. The other one that came to my mind was years ago, and this is my story. I have a number of take responsibility stories, but this is the one that popped into my mind. The year would have been 1980. 1980, and I was working, as you may know, I worked for oil and gas exploration companies, which is the platform that I use to travel all over this planet and explore different cultures. And that when I was 19, I got a job with a company called Geosource that sent me to the North Atlantic and to all sorts of places, including the swamps of Louisiana. And I worked on deep water ships. I worked on oil exploration companies. And I recorded seismic data. I worked on geophysical phone lines. I set dynamite in the ground. I worked for surveyors. I did all kinds of stuff. I met all kinds of military and scientific people. I met some of the lowest people on the planet and some of the highest, most intelligent people. And my exposure to oil and gas exploration was truly a smorgasbord of humanity, characters and settings all over the planet. So anyway, there we were in 1980, and we were in rural Louisiana. And we were in far eastern Louisiana, and we were way down in this swamp area where you have to drive your car to about the end of the land in eastern Louisiana till you hit the Gulf of Mexico. But you don't hit the Gulf of Mexico, you hit the swamps that come in from the Gulf of Mexico. And the whole of Louisiana is, I think part of it was made to be a swamp by the the locks of Louisiana, of the Mississippi River. Anyway, basically Louisiana, huge portions of Louisiana are just the runoff from the Mississippi River, and it's just that it rains there all the time. And I have been all over this planet, and I can tell you that the swamps of Louisiana and the jungles back there rival anything on this planet. They got more insects and reptiles and things that'll bite you and sting you and dangerous stuff, and it's humid and everything is moldy, and fungus just grows wild there, and mildew and whatever. It's a rough part of the world to live in. And so we drove down in there, and then we got on these boats and we drove through the swamps for couple of hours until we got to this place where we're going to do our work. And there's a quarter boat there. It's a barge with a residence set up on it where we all lived. And then there was a big other barge that was our water supply for the whole summer we worked out there. And it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal the whole time. And we were cruising through the swamps and setting dynamite charges and blowing up all kinds of fish. The local people loved us because when we set off the dynamite charges in the water, we would drag these. It's called primer cord, and it's like a long strip of dynamite, and you tape a blasting cap to it, and you let it troll behind the boat. And you set it off with a electronic pulse, and that's what we were doing all summer long, is recording the vibrations from these explosions. And so we were stunning a lot of fish, and the locals would hang around in these boats and pick up all the fish that we would that we would send to the surface, either dead or paralyzed. And they loved us. They thought we were great, man. It was better than going fishing. And what I learned on that journey was that in rural Louisiana, there are people that don't ever have cars, probably. They have boats, and that's how they live, and that's how they move. They don't really seem to go anywhere except by boat. And they fish. They fish these big alligator gar that they make this different kinds of food out of. I didn't find it particularly great, but they also make boudin. They hunt nutria. And they talk a language that's not from this world. It's a combination of rural English, French, Spanish, and whatever other lingo they got, and they talk, and this Cajun. I can't even imitate it. I can imitate the Waorani Indians in Ecuador out in the Amazon jungle, but I cannot imitate your average coon ass. Anyway, so there we are, way back in the swamps there, and we finally finish up our work, and it was a long, hot, tiring summer. And we are, all of us, sunburned and bug bit. There's just mosquitoes everywhere. It doesn't seem to matter how much insect repellent you put on. It was awful. And we've all been working hard, living on this quarter boat. And the last few days, maybe even a week, we don't have enough water in our barge to shower. All right. So the men, we only got enough water to sort of wash our hands and face and cook with. But they inform us a few days out that we can't shower anymore, or otherwise I have to go order a whole nother barge full of water, and they don't want to pay for that. And we only got a few days left, right, which strang into a day and 3 and 5. And so, by the end of it, we finally get out of that swamp, and we take off. We have to make that long boat ride and take all of our equipment through these swamps. And this, we have this one boat called the, and they don't have any hull on them, and so they slip along the top of the water. And we had to have those, because the water's so shallow where we were, and so we come around this corner, and the guys who are driving the Wet Dream have gone, completely out of the canal, and they've run up on the mud bank, and they're stuck there. All their gear is thrown all over the bank, and it was a sight to see, believe me. And so we all have to get out and haul and, wade through the freaking mud and drag this damn thing out of there. And we finally get the boat back off the bank and into the water. And then we proceed on, and we finally get to the land, and we unload all the gear, and we load it into this truck, and we're all exhausted. And this is about midday, and it's still hot. Everybody's sweaty, tired. And they inform us that, oh, well, no, you don't have a hotel here to go to. We have a hotel room for you in Houston, and that's about 7 hours away, all right? And they point to an old station wagon, and they send 5 of us, and we're all exhausted. I mean, we're tired, and we sort of, I can't remember how I wound up driving. I don't think I was the only driver. I think somebody else started driving and got tired and then said, Steve, will you drive? And so I did. And here I am driving down. It takes us a couple hours just to get out of the swamps and in onto the interstate highway, I-10, to lead us to Houston. And so we're driving through Louisiana. And everybody, I'm driving, and we got 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours to get to Houston, to our hotel, so we can all take a shower and have a meal and go to sleep. And we're all exhausted. And some of the guys have started drinking back there. And so everyone's like passed out in the car except for me. I'm driving, all right? And I've taken responsibility for this thing, right? And so I'm driving down Interstate 10, and we come to a long, long bridge. If you've ever been on I-10, there's somewhere just east of the Texas border. There's a long-ass bridge, really, really long, that goes over the Atchafalaya Swamp. And the Atchafalaya Swamp is this just expanse of more swamp in another part of Louisiana. And we're on this bridge, and we're on, it's one of these old station wagons that was equipped with cruise control, but it wasn't it wasn't the kind that we have now where it will turn off if you like switch gears or something, or you put your foot on the brake, it won't turn off. And so I was sleepy and tired, and I'm driving this car, and I got the cruise control on, and somehow I was reaching for something, and I touched the gear shifter, and the car, and everybody's asleep in this car. We're going about 80 miles an hour down across the Atchafalaya Swamp. And I managed to put the car accidentally in neutral, and all of a sudden that cruise control, which was keeping the RPMs at a certain point, it didn't go off. And all of a sudden, RPMs, when I put that car in neutral, I accidentally knocked the gear shift, which it's supposed to lock, but it didn't. And all of a sudden, the RPMs go, and go way up. And I was kind of stunned by it. I didn't know what to do. I put my foot on the brake, and nothing was happening. I started to slow the car. I think I started to slow the car down. Anyway, I accidentally put it in neutral, so I put it back in gear, which is what I would have normally done if I'd done that, without cruise control or whatever. Anyway, when the RPMs went way high on that station wagon, and I slipped it back into drive, and all of a sudden you hear this, this crunching sound. It was horrible. And everybody in the car is like, "Hey man, what was that?" And I was like, I played stupid. I was like, "Gee, I don't know what happened." And all of a sudden the car is like, grinds to a halt. there on the side of the road. And we've obviously chewed up the transmission because the RPMs were too high to put it back in gear, and I totally screwed up. I didn't tell them that. Fortunately for me, everybody was asleep. Hey, if you're one of my former crew members from 1980, okay, I confess I did something that made that car stop, all right? And but I played stupid, and I was like, hey, something's wrong. I don't know what's wrong. And so here we are on the side of the road, on the shoulder, with interstate traffic whizzing by us. And we're in the middle of the Atchafalaya swamp. It's not like you can walk to a gas station or something. And we're like, holy shit, what do we do? And so I proposed, I said, look, I can hitchhike to a gas station and call the company and, tell them, and then they will figure out how to do, what to do. But that could take a long time, all right? And what I propose, gentlemen, is that we pool our money together, we hire a tow truck, and have it take us back to Houston, maybe rent a car or something, and get ourselves out of here, out of this swamp. I mean, and everybody, some of them are already half drunk, everybody's exhausted, and they're, and nobody really wants to do anything. They were happy being asleep. And they said, no, the company will take care of us. That was the consensus, was that the company was going to take care of us. And if someone would just go and make a call, that they'd be all right. They didn't want to, take responsibility for the situation, for our situation. And so, I said, because I had done it and I felt guilty, I said, oh, okay, well, look, I will hitchhike to a gas station. And there is no gas station in sight, mind you. It's going to be miles. It's just miles to get across that Atchafalaya bridge. We're sitting there on this bridge, and everybody was like, okay, yeah, go call the company, and and then come back and send the company here, and we'll wait for the company to come and get us. All right, and so I got out of the car. And I got my, I think I left my bag. All I had was my clothes, on my back. And I don't walk 100 yards. I didn't walk 50 yards. And I stuck out my thumb. And a car pulls over and picks me up. And I said, okay, I'll give him a call. See you later. And so this nice man picks me up and he says, what's going on? And I said, well, we've been on this crew and now our car's broken down. We're all super tired. And so I need to go to a gas station and call the company. And he says, okay, I'll take you. And he takes me, it's 10 miles up the road. We go to a gas station. And I make a call to the company. I tell them what's happened, and they say, okay, well, we'll try to figure out what to do, So, and then I've accomplished my mission for the crew, and I come back to the car and to thank the guy, and he says, well, hey, I'm going to Houston, if you want a ride, I'd be glad to give you a ride. Where in Houston are you going? And it turns out my hotel is in the vicinity of where this guy's going. So I just go with him, and he gives me a ride all the way to the hotel. I sleep in his car on the way. I'm exhausted. It's got the air conditioning blowing in my face. I mean, the minute that AC hit my face, I was asleep. And I wake up, I'm at the hotel, I go in, I take a shower, I call the company to make sure that they've gone. They say, yeah, we're figuring something out, don't worry about it. And so, I go in and take a shower, go have a steak and a baked potato and go to my room, go to sleep. And it was, as I think about it now, it was that moment when that man asked me, well, look, do you want me to take you to Houston? all right? Instead of going back and hanging out on that bridge with 4 other guys in a station wagon, do you want me to take you to your hotel? It was at that precise moment that Stevie, having accomplished his mission for the group, took responsibility and said, you know what, I need to care for myself. And so I slept that night, those guys didn't get back to that hotel until late that next afternoon. They had to sleep in that car. The company could not figure out how to get someone out there that evening, so they made them all sleep on the Atchafalaya Bridge. And it's not like they could even, there wasn't even a restroom. They were taking a leak on the side of the road there because they were stranded. And there's no place to get water, no place to get food. They're just stuck there thinking that the company is going to take care of them. And they came dragging back in that next day, and they were all upset that I had not come back. But I said, look, I did what I was supposed to do. And I made sure that the company was doing something for you. Why in the world would I want to come back there? What good would that serve? But here I was, fresh as a daisy, and these 4 other guys came back just beaten and brutalized. And little did they know it was all my fault, I suppose, although they've changed the designs of these cars for that very reason. It was in the dawn of the cruise control, and hell, I don't know that I'd ever even driven a car with a cruise control, but if I had, it hadn't been very much. Anyway, taking a personal responsibility is important. Had I relied on our company to care for me, I would have been far worse than if I had taken charge and said, hey, what is it that's actually good for me, for Stevie? What is the best, not to disregard the needs of others, because we have a responsibility to them, but what good would it be to hang with the herd rather than to look out for myself? And I have found in life that in whatever area of life you're wandering around in, trying to discern between what you're taught and the care of others and being a dependent is oftentimes much less valuable than being an independent, following your intuition. The left brain logical is powerful, and it is giving you information that you've been taught all the time, and you rely on what you've been taught, and you ask, well, you say, instead of saying, well, I want to go to this restaurant, you say, well, what do y'all want to do? Instead of expressing your opinion, you say your physical health is in poor shape, or your mental health is in poor shape. And so instead of really trying to decide, what can I personally do first before I get into an emergency situation, and then I really do have to rely on others and medical personnel and pharmaceuticals even. But to me, that's a last resort. And what plants can I be consuming that actually bring me vitamins and health and healing qualities? What physical things can I do? I got a headache. Well, how much water have I drank today? That's my first question. I live in the Texas Hill Country where it's dry, and so I ask myself, am I properly hydrated? This body requires quite a lot of water, and sometimes I drink this coffee and I forget that I'm supposed to be consuming water. All right, this body has needs. Am I eating things that actually have nutrients in it, or am I eating things that just have empty calories and stuff that taste good? And the machine's got to run. If you have an automobile that you put poor gas into, and you don't give maintenance to, and you don't tune it up once in a while, and you don't run it like it's supposed to. If you got a Shelby GT 350 sitting in your garage, and you don't take care of that thing, guess what? when you want to mash on the gas pedal and get some performance out of that baby, ain't gonna happen. It's gonna cough and spit if it starts at all. And your car, your car is very much like your body. This is just something you ride around in for a little while until it's gone, all right? And if you're not taking care of it, no wonder you got a headache. No wonder you got acid indigestion, Your body's like a swimming pool. It's got a pH balance in it. And are you aware that cancer and other diseases can't really survive in a non-acid environment? If you have a high alkalinity in your swimming pool, if you've got a proper balance physically as well as mentally, that physical balance of acid to alkaline, your pH balance, is critically important to your health. And if you're constantly shoving all sorts of acidic stuff into your body, the answer is not, when you start to feel bad and your acid level's high and you got acid reflux all the time, then hey, I'm no doctor, I'm not giving you medical advice. All I'm telling you is the way I've seen this body over 50 years. Hey, I'm an owner of a body, or at least I'm a tenant in this body. And the way it works is that if I don't put enough alkalinity and wash it through with enough water, then it becomes acidic and very uncomfortable to live in this machine, all right? And so I have to, instead of popping some Tums, or worse yet, having to eat Prilosec or some antacid, pharmaceutical, which you're not doing yourself any real favors by doing that, okay? What that says, if you're reaching for something like Prilosec, in my opinion, at least for me, all that means is that you are not taking responsibility for that body, all right? You're shoving into it anything that tastes good or feels good. You're drinking too much booze, too much coffee, eating too much meat, eating all sorts of processed crap instead of natural, real food like vegetables, then you kind of deserve whatever you get, But if you're constantly paying attention to the fuel that you put in and the exercise that you do, if you're not doing any exercise, man, what's happening is everything becomes stagnant in that system. It's very much like not running a high-performance engine, all right? You got a high-performance engine, you can put good gas in it, and you can, do maintenance things to it. But if you don't actually make it run, if you don't actually heat up the motor to temperature, make that temperature gauge come all the way up to the middle the way it's supposed to, and actually run it and move it and make all the fluids flow around through it, if you don't do that, then it's become a stagnant, gummed out motor, all right? And that's what your body does, all right? And we discount a lot. Well, no, I don't want to go for a walk today. I don't want to go for a run today. I don't want to go to the gym today. I don't want to do that shit, all right? It doesn't feel good. At least it doesn't feel good initially. I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to. I do not want to come to this mental gym every day. I do not want to. But what happens, it starts to move things around, and it starts to generate energy and generate oxygen, hemoglobin in your system, starts to bring the divine particles of health and vibrancy to you that you need in order to spin at the highest level, to make this machine run. And when you make the physical machine run, ladies and gentlemen, surprise, surprise, it's going to make the mind run and the ability to access that higher level of consciousness that you want, that to give you the better answers that you need to feel good, to put off a vibrational perimeter that people sense right when they come into your presence and they say, wow, who is this? They feel good, whoever they are. But if you're stagnant physically, you're stagnant mentally, and I don't care how smart you are. If your physical being doesn't have enough oxygen and nutrients, running through it, and if you don't have the crackling energy that only exercise will give you, then you're running at half speed. You're running under what I call the yellow flag. When I'm driving in my car, like in a racetrack, you got the green flag, the yellow flag, and the red flag, and whenever there's a wreck up ahead, you got to slow the engine down, and you only cruise at half speed just to be cautious. And that's what a lot of people do. They're cautious. I remember people like my dad and other people, very cautious people, and they're like, what, I don't want to do that, because what will happen if something goes wrong? What will happen? What will happen if you exercise too much and you have a stroke, or you break something, or you tear something, or you hurt yourself? What will happen? Better not. Better stay under the yellow flag, My question to you is, what will happen if you do run at full speed? What will happen if you do? What will happen if you don't break? All right? Who will you become if you move forward to your highest and best level? What will happen if you don't have a stroke, if you don't break your arm, if you don't tear a tendon? What will happen? What will happen if you don't take that risk? If you want to start a new business, if you want to start a new podcast, if you want to do anything in the world, there's always a fear that somehow we're going to get injured. We're going to get humiliated. We're going to look ridiculous. We're going to lose money. We're going to waste our time. What will happen, if something goes wrong? These are not the questions so much to ask. It's always good to look at the downside of any situation. That's for sure. Not just to charge ahead blindly. But ask yourself the question, what will happen to me if I don't do this? What will happen if I don't quit smoking cigarettes? If I don't quit overeating? What will happen to me if I don't exercise? What will happen to me if I don't take personal responsibility for this situation when I know in my heart what I'm supposed to do and I don't do it? What's going to happen to me? It's not only the consequence of lesser health and not functioning at the optimum level, but you're actually damaging your self-esteem when you know in your heart you're supposed to take responsibility for something and you don't. Right? There is an escalating or a slippery slope that starts to happen, and from where I sit, I'm constantly in this balancing act between what I'm supposed to take responsibility for and what I don't want to do the easy way. And there's this constant series of choices every single day of what I'm supposed to do, and I don't want to do some of those things. But when I do, I always feel better about it. Isn't that weird? Just going to the gym or doing some kind of exercise is an example, but there are many examples. But most often I say, no, I don't want to go and do the exercise. No, it's painful. No, I'd rather lay around here. No, it'll be okay if I don't do it today, and which rolls into tomorrow and the next day. It's all right if I don't do it. I can do that. I am a man. I don't have to choose that if I don't want to. But what happens? What happens is that there's an incremental lowering of the self-esteem when you're constantly making decisions that are against what you intuitively know, that will raise your vibration, that will make you the highest and best, which will give you the most juice out of this life while you're on this planet. Not only are you losing the physical energy that you could have had if you went, but you're also, your self-esteem goes down another notch, all right? And by the same token, if you're making the choices and taking responsibility for the things you instinctively know, then you not only get the benefit of those choices, but the self-esteem inches up a little bit. I like to think of the personal vision that we all have deep in our heart. There's something that we want, something that we can see, something in our mind's eye that we say, gosh, I wish life was like that. I wish I could do that. I wish I could start that. I wish I could write that book. I wish I could have that relationship. Whatever it is, there's a vision there. And there's a simple incremental exercise every day that makes you feel good when you make choices that go in that direction. You do a simple little thing. Kaizen is the Japanese term that I always refer to, of small incremental steps lead to big changes. All right, it's a great word, Kaizen. Because you don't have to, realize the whole thing. It's like Martin Luther King said, don't look at the whole mountain. Just take the first step. All right, just take the first step, and the first step leads to the next step. And when you do that, and you start upon a journey towards your dream, towards your vision, towards your highest and best health, your highest and best career, your highest and best relationship. When you do that, and you're not willing to settle for anything less, but you're stuck in some crap job that you don't like, the best thing that one can do is take these little steps. And so why? Because after you get done doing that crap job every day that you don't like and you complain about all the time, you get to go to sleep at night and you get to say something to yourself that makes the whole day better. And what you say is, today I did something to get to my dream and I got a little closer. I got a little closer. I made that call, or I did that exercise, or I looked up something on the internet. I made a new relationship. I sent a letter. I studied something. I read a few words in a book. I did something to get me a little closer, and at least I got that going for me. And so that when you go to sleep at night, you can have that little self-esteem boost by having taken some responsibility for your dream, for yourself, for what you want in your life. And as you do that over and over and over, as I come here, baby, I don't want to come and look at this thing and talk to this, green light on my computer every morning. I feel weird. But as I do it, I get a little bit better at it. I feel a little more comfortable at it. And as I see these comments here, some of which are nice, sometimes you need to be brave, Donnie says. I'm the one who takes responsibility and helps out and never gets nothing new. Oh, that's not. Anyway, hey, you cannot go forward if you don't take steps. You cannot. All right. You can dream about stuff all day long. All right. And so my answer to that is when someone says, I want to learn the piano, but do you know how long it would take for me to learn how to play the piano? The answer is the same length of time it would take if you don't learn how to play the piano. It's going to take that much time. And if you go in the way of not trying to learn the piano, you will all the time have in the back of your mind, hey, I should have learned. I wanted to do that, but I didn't do it. And you're stuck with that thought, which lowers the vibration. And whereas if day after day after day, you're learning chopsticks and you're learning simple little things and you're learning how to move your hand day after day after day, if you want to be a broadcaster and all you know how to do is turn on this live stream and try to start broadcasting and grope your way through it, I get to go to sleep at night and say, hey, I did a little something for my dream, before I went to work at a job that I'm not really all that crazy about. It's not the vision that gives me the big feeling, but before I went to that job, I got to sit here and practice my craft just a little bit more. Where is this going to lead? Who knows? I have no idea. And it doesn't matter because I'm at least taking steps in the direction of my dreams. And like Ralph Waldo Emerson says, you walk confidently in the direction of your dreams, and eventually you'll live the life that's unheard of in common hours or something like that. Anyway, you get the drift. If you don't start taking steps and taking full responsibility for everything, then you're a victim, all right? And that's who you will always be. And I'm going to leave you. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Teddy Roosevelt. And oftentimes we're afraid of what people are going to say and looking ridiculous. And you certainly have lots of room to look ridiculous when you talk into a live stream that goes all over the planet. You know, but if something's worth doing, it's worth doing badly in the beginning. But just one step at a time. And when you're worried about what people have to say, Teddy Roosevelt's answer to that was, it's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or how the doers of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the one who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is no achievement without error, and who knows the great devotions, the great enthusiasms, and who spends himself in a worthy cause. And in the end, if he succeeds, he knows the triumph of high achievement. And if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory or defeat. Do not be one of those cold and timid souls, you know. Fight for what you want. Take responsibility. You know, it doesn't matter. You're going to die anyway. How many minutes you got left here, baby? How many minutes? I'm 60, man. I figure every minute after that's gravy. We don't have many minutes left. They're gonna close the box on you pretty soon, baby. Do what you want to do. Try to do what you want to do, because it is in the trying that you find a tremendous amount of joy. It is, in fact, in the journey. And the raising of your vibration when you try and make effort and try to get closer to that dream. It is that every day. It is not the achievement of the dream and getting to live that life. It is in the walk, all right? And how you walk the walk, not just how you talk the talk. I've talked about, doing some internet kind of thing for years, and you know what? I was just talking the talk, but I turned this thing on. This is my 57th hour. It's actually about my 60th hour, but about 2 or 3 times I turned this damn thing on and I did it wrong and I talked to myself for an hour, all right? But I got to practice. I got a little closer. To something, some unknown a dream of mine, to be a speaker and a storyteller and a travel guide, instead of working on a construction site and being a real estate broker. This is my dream, ladies and gentlemen. I don't care much what you think about it, although it's nice when you do make comments and you get a little something out of it. And I do it in part for me, and I do it in part for you. And that's part of the achievement of your dream, by the way, all right? Doing it for somebody else, all right? Because if you have a dream, a good dream, it usually involves the benefit of someone else. Simply by the fact that you get better and you find your true path, and that your vibration is rising, your health is getting better, your career path is getting more clear, you're happier, you're more vibrant. It shines all over the people around you, all right? Your family, your friends feel better when you are rising, not when you're staying stagnant, all right? That in and of itself is a good payoff, all right, of your daily practice of Kaizen. Simple incremental steps lead to big changes. And so here we are. I've ranted and raved for just a little while this morning, trying to practice my craft, trying to raise my vibration, because I love myself and I love you just as Jesus would have wanted. And whether, your spiritual vintage is with Jesus or with Buddha or with Krishna or Islam or whoever. That spirit is universal. and the raising of it and allowing it to grow naturally, uninhibited by any kind of a box, and being who you are actually supposed to be. You have plants that grow inside a terrarium, and you see them once they've grown to semi-maturity, they're inhibited from growing completely. And then you see plants whose leaves are all stretched out, who are shining and growing completely free in the sun. And which one seems happier to you, huh? And so I encourage you to be who you are supposed to be, to not be afraid of the critics out there, to do intuitively what you know you're supposed to do, and take responsibility for that dream. Take responsibility for that vision. It is not easy, but it's a simple thing. When you think of it, simple but not easy, and you're going to be happier and more vibrant. And collectively, let's raise the vibration of this planet. I love you with all my heart and soul. Thank you, you guys, for Donnie and Astroff. Hey there, Lucas. Hey, great weekend to you guys. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm probably not going to be here next week. I've got to go out of town, and I may be in a place where it's harder for me to broadcast. I'm going to be in a house with 2 or 3 other guys. We're doing some meetings up in Virginia. But I'll try to turn this on and talk to you from Virginia next week. Anyway, have a great weekend. I love you with all my heart and soul. And I'll talk to you later. This is Stevie the Guide in Kerrville, Texas.
At the trailer on the highway, love's garden we grew.
I love you. I love you.
And I watered, and it was all that we knew.
Good morning.
Among the okra and tomatoes, a strong bond so true. At the trailer on the highway, love's garden.
I love this woman. There's another woman I love, but I'm not going to tell you about her.